Yo, welcome guys to another lesson. Welcome again to my YouTube channel. And in today's lesson, we are going to cover the first episode of our Amplify or AWS Amplify course. The reason behind why I am doing this course is because I consider Amplify as a good service that allows developers, especially um, independent developers, to deploy application so fast and so easy. And personally, it has been a tool that has been helped me a lot all this time, and I want to share with you guys how to use this tool and how to increase your productivity and deploy application without problems, because you already know that once we are handle deployment, we are talking about DevOps, and DevOps is pretty different than something that you see at the beginning of your journey. For example, software architecture, or what is a function, or what is a variable. That was a long time ago, and after that you cover what is a programming language, and these are some programming language like Java, JavaScript, Python. And after that you cover some frameworks that allows you to create applications fast and easy. For example, I don't know, the Django, a fast API, in React, Angular, and a lot more. And during this journey, you also see how to handle states and maybe create more complex application. So at the end, you need something, or you need knowledge about how to deploy or how to take that applications and show to the public, show to the people, show to someone. And yeah, DevOps, it's hard. Even I already have a course, but in my other channel, my other Spanish channel, that has like 40 episodes or more than 40 episodes, where because we talk about Linux, we talk about how to handle terminal, we talk about different tools and more. And of course, DevOps is all a profession itself. You can specialize as a DevOps engineer, and that's amazing. But in our scenario, we need to develop apps. Well, we need to deploy apps fast and maybe without to make a degree about it. And don't worry, because we have some tools called Platform as a Service that allows to deploy application fast without worry about the server state, or maybe some package updates, or maybe versioning. Platform as a Service allow you just give your application, deploy it, and have a specific domain that allows you to see your web app, for example. That's amazing, and that is the reason why we are going to use AWS Amplify. Of course, there is a lot more, but in this case, we are going to cover AWS Amplify. So let's start. We are going to create a standalone Next.js application. So first of all, let me open my terminal using Debian. Currently, we are using Windows 11 using WSL, and in my distribution, in my Windows system for Linux system, I am using Debian. So let's start with creating the Next.js application, because I don't remember the script or the package name. Let's see what is the package name, because I always forget it. Okay, this just right there. npx create.js app. Like, you already know about it, so let's try to make this fast and simple. In my case, I don't know, maybe Amplify app. Yes. Well, we are using Next.js 15. And well, wait for a second. Once our application is already configured, let's open with Visual Studio Code to Amplify app. And after that, we need to create a GitHub repository, GitLab repository. In my case, I'm going to use GitHub that allows to use inside AWS to deploy the application. That is pretty and amazing easy. So let's change this profile just right there. And as you can see, we have a standalone application, Next.js application. In this episode, we are not going to change anything about this because we can deploy our application. Well, I don't know why this is not incrementing. Okay, thank you so much. And of course, we can deploy this application without any kind of AWS Amplify configuration. But the idea behind this course is that in the next episode, we are going to cover the amplify.yml that allows to create some configuration, of course, to implement all other tools from the AWS environment. Like, I don't know, if you need authentication, you are going to use Cognito, AWS Cognito. If you need data persistent, you are going to use DynamoDB. If you need safe files, you are going to use S3. If you need artificial intelligence in specific occasions, you are going to use AWS agents. And if you want to include lambdas inside your application, you are going to use, of course, AWS Lambda. So there's a lot of tools that we can handle and already configure using inside the Amplify framework. So let me see. Here's my GitHub profile. Let's create a basic repository. In my case, the name doesn't matter, so I'm going to remove this in the next episode, so I don't care. Delete Next.js app and publish again. Let's take this command right there, open a terminal, and send this to the GitHub repository. I need to change readme.md because we need to include all the files, and it's done. So let's go to the Amplify service, and as you can see, I have already a lot of different applications, but in this case, I'm going to create a new one. Let's click to the create new app. In my case, I'm going to use GitHub, but also you can use Gitbucket. CodeMake is already deprecated, so sadly you can't use this anymore. And GitLab, or of course, maybe if you have already files saved inside a Amazon S3 instance, or you have the zip file, you can deploy without Git. Or of course, use a template, but I don't recommend the template at all because it's important that you understand what files are you going to use to implement some configuration related with Amplify. So I don't recommend these ones. So let's use GitHub. Click to the next button. In this case, it's just using okay, I need to reload because my session is expired. So give me a second. Okay, we are back. Sorry for that. Let's go to AWS Amplify again. And well, repeat the process. Don't worry. So create new app. You can do it. Next, GitHub. Wait for a second. Maybe you need to upload GitHub permission. Click just right there and use your profile, and all is working at all. And in this section, we are going to select the GitHub repository, in my case, delete Next.js app. And that's amazing because you also can configure a branch in an independent way. So you can deploy main, the beta as you want. And of course, we have the monorepo option. If you ask me, to be honest, I have never worked with repos, a monorepo. I already know that monorepo is about you include different applications inside one repository. That's why it's called mono. But I don't know. In the practice, I never tried monorepo. So, but it is good to know that we have just right there the config, and maybe if you need the path, you need to, I don't know, use front end, main source main.ts. I don't know, but that's fine. Let's deploy the main branch. Let's go next, and let's see what we have just right there. We have the app name. We can change it, so don't worry about it. We have the build settings. For example, we auto detect frameworks, in this case Next.js, and we have these commands. These commands come from the configuration file. I know, I already told you, we don't have we don't need configuration at the beginning. This configuration is automatically used by AWS service, because of course you need to specify, well, what is your build command, where is the output directory, and something like that. So don't worry about it. It's just like something like this. But in the future, we are going to need this file, this configuration, maybe to handle some specific case. For example, I don't remember, but let's take, for example, that Amplify use Node.js version 20, and your application needs Node.js 22. So of course you need to change the version. So just right there you can use, I don't know, nvn and install the Node.js 2022, or maybe if you want to use ban or another one, you, in this case, you can handle the configuration you want, or maybe you need to configure environment variables in an other way, in an alternative way, because Amplify I already use built-in environment variables and more. As you can see, we have the pre-build commands and the build commands. Pre-build commands, of course, and obviously we need to install the packages, and after that is just the command npm run build. Other ones, like the base directory where the outputs files are into or are saved, and a regular expression that allows to include from the root, use all the files and folders you get, or you find inside the repository. But of course, this is important. For example, if maybe you have some problems, like maybe you already don't know, the maximum size of a Amplify application is 400 megabytes. So you have to be careful with that. Of course, for 400 megabytes in a front-end application is very weird, but remember that we are using Next.js application, and of course we have the integrated API routes from Next.js, and of course we can create a whole backend in a front-end application. So be careful with the package that you are installing, because if you are not careful with this, you can overpass the 400 megabytes and your application won't be deployed. And of course we have the second section that is about cache. Cache is not taking or take and count, so it doesn't matter if your cache has a lot of space, because handled in some way that maybe you can use some part of the cache, but dependencies is pretty big and more. But of course you have the paths. You need to specify the paths if your application is cache. By default, we have this one. So let's save this, and also we can protect our site using password, username and password, using the web browser API, and of course we have roles. By default, we only use CloudWatch logs, and of course you don't need to configure this. If in the future, even if the future, are you going to use DynamoDB or S3 services, because this is already configured once you use the amplify.yml configuration and the other files configuration. Maybe if you are using those libraries without the Amplify framework, for example, Amplify Gen 1, of course you need to install the dependencies, of course, and also you need to configure the role in each role as independent. I don't know how to say that, but you need to manually configure the roles permission. And of course, that is pretty bad. But in this new generation, we can handle this automatically. So that's pretty nice. In my case, I'm going to use the create and use a new service role and click next. We have a summary and let's save and deploy. Okay, from this part, thanks that we are not using the Amplify framework, this is going to take almost 2 or 3 minutes. But in the future, in the next episode, we are going to use the Amplify framework, and maybe this could take a little more of time, like 5, 6, even 10 minutes. So don't worry about it. Maybe worry if the build phase takes more than 15 minutes or something like that. That is something went wrong and you need to redeploy the application. And of course, we have this interface right there. We have sandboxes. In the next episode, we are going to cover this. We can see the deployed URL. And of course, we can handle different branches just right there. At this moment, we only have main, but we can add branches in this section. Of course, we are going to cover different branches during this course. We have the hosting section where we can modify the access control, notification from build, settings from build. We can change the amplify.yml, but the best option you have about this is have the amplify.yml inside the repository, because each change you have just right there, not in the platform. You can include even custom domains because you have this URL right there. We can of course handle this like a web server, and you can change the headers and the cache, the environment variables. You can include firewall. Of course, be careful with the option that you are using, because it looks like, hey, that's pretty amazing. Let's block some IP address or let's block some countries, but be careful because this is going to take charge. This is going to be charged in your amount, in your account, depending on the configuration that you are using. So, first of all, get information about the WAF service, that is AWS firewall, and after that use the corresponding option, because if you, I don't know, active this one, in my case, just for fun, charge me like $5. So it's not, it's like, okay, to be honest, my client works in the same city I am, and their public target is the current city. Maybe inside Colombia, or even the whole continent if some clients are outside the country. But I think, or I believe, or I thought that maybe, I don't know, a terrorist group from China that has a big botnet are going to attack my client, and I say, okay, let's block China, let's block, I don't know, Afghanistan or something more, and believe on me, it's not necessary if your application is not big enough. And because this is not free, so be careful. Even this configuration just right there is maybe some standalone, because you can even disable it. If I can disable it just right now, but I can save. If we configure this, we are including a firewall configuration, and this is chargeable, so be careful. But if I go back to the firewall, as you can see, it's enabled again. We have monitoring if you are using another service like AWS Lambda. We have also previews, rewards and rewrites, these redirections, and secrets. Of course, we are going to cover in the next episode what is the difference between environment variables in secrets. And we have the general setting. We can change the information, the general app information. We have the branch settings that we can activate or deactivate the auto build. And this is a new one, so I didn't even know what does mean. So let's see in the future. And IMA roles, this is a new one. Maybe something that I want to tell you is that this service as Amplify Gen 2 is not older than 1 year, because the official notes about AWS Amplify Gen 2 is from May 2024, as you can see. So it's relatively new, and maybe you can see some changes meanwhile you are working with the platform. So that's nice, but of course there are some limitations that will be solved, but with the time, of course, waiting about it. Let's go to the main, and as you can see, we have the specific implementation just right there. As you can see, only use 2 minutes of build. We have also the integration, or the visual integration, about authentication, data, AI, storage function, and a UI library that allows to, among others, for example, have a ready dialogue, or a login dialogue that allows to register people, login people, forget password section, email security code, and more. So that's pretty nice. It's already configured, so that's the reason why I highly recommend Amplify to deploy application, because if you need a login or a face, and so if you need to include login or registry, is pretty easy. And of course, you also can see the logs just right there. You can see if something goes wrong, and the deploy, but the deploy is not big enough. And we have the domain just right there. If we don't configure a custom domain, we are going to use this one, and as you can see, we have the application just right there. So that's really nice. This service has some limitations that we are going to cover at the future, and it's good to know that the limitation are going to talk in the future episode is our limitation about the maybe early, inside quotation mark, early access application, because it's something like, I don't know, I can log in users with TOTP codes. That is something that I would like to, but I already know that is something that will be implemented in the future. So AWS team is actively working, implementing some features to the Amplify framework. So that's pretty nice, because it's something that is continuous improving. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and see you in the next time. Bye bye.